Good morning. I am joined here this morning by the Newton Chief of Police, John Carmichael, by the Mayor of Newton, Ruth Ann Fuller, by Detective Lieutenant Donahue from the Mass State Police, Sergeant Tony DeLucia from the State Police, as well as Captain George McBains, Detective Sergeant Brian Tramontosi, and Detective Steve Fontana from the Newton Police. Yesterday, September 27th, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Newton Police went to the home of a Leonard Garber. Mr. Garber was 65 years old. He had been living on Mount Vernon Terrace here in the city. The police went to that house as part of an ongoing missing person investigation. That investigation had begun in the evening of Monday evening when the police received phone calls from various friends and family members of Mr. Garber, indicating that he, who was someone who kept in very regular contact with people, had not been heard from, at least since the end of last week. The police went to the house on Monday. They went to the house early yesterday. They went back to the house yesterday afternoon. At that point, they located Mr. Garber's body wrapped in a curtain under construction materials and several other heavy items in the front hallway of the house. Based on the preliminary assessment, and I stress that this is very preliminary information at this point. It appears that the body had been there for some time in excess of a day, and that it had been placed in such a way as to conceal it from people coming into the home. We later learned, as a result of the investigation that had been going on since Monday, that Mr. Garber had been spending some time with a female former tenant of his at a different address, not the address where the body was located. That individual is identified as Zhu Fang Qi. The investigation indicates that Ms. Qi had allegedly been forging checks from a joint account of Mr. Garber and had allegedly stolen in excess of $40,000. The information we have at this point indicates that at some time between Thursday and Saturday, that Mr. Garber had become aware of the use of his checks, had confronted Ms. Qi about those checks, and that she had allegedly struck and killed him, and then made efforts to conceal the body. Police reviewed the surveillance footage from Mr. Garber's home. It allegedly shows an Asian female, later identified as the defendant, Ms. Qi, entering Mr. Garber's home several times in the days leading up to the discovery of his body. Ms. Qi was arrested early this morning without incident at the Newton Police Station. She will be arraigned later today. The investigation of this case, as with all homicides occurring in this county, was done between our office, the Massachusetts State Police assigned to our office, as well as their forensic teams, and in conjunction with the Newton Police Department. I'm going to turn this over to Chief Carmichael. We expect that Ms. Qi will be arraigned relatively shortly on charges of murder and other charges in the Newton District Court next door later this morning. Chief.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Carmichael, I'm Police Chief of the Newton Police Department. I guess my comments will just more focus on the efforts of our officers, which I'm very proud of, beginning with all of the witnesses who reported the victim missing from the beginning, to our dispatcher who took that initial call and follow-up calls, to our officers who responded to that scene, our detectives who diligently followed up with each lead that they had that ultimately led to the suspect that was involved, to the collaboration with our DA's office, the troopers assigned to the DA's office. It was a great example of teamwork and effort with everybody involved. I appreciate the mayor's support of our department in instances like this, and I'm proud of the outcome in this case. Everybody worked very hard over the last 72, 48 hours, and I'm appreciative of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Randall.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ruth Ann Fuller, Mayor here in the City of Newton. I want to begin by saying to the family of Leonard Garber, I personally express my condolences, and I speak for the people of Newton when I say our hearts and prayers are with you. Mr. Garber was a member of our community. He attended synagogue here. He had friends and neighbors who knew him and cared about him. You too are in our thoughts, especially in this period of repentance in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The alleged perpetrator is also known in our community, and I want to acknowledge as well that this is a disturbing and difficult time for those who know her. I want to reinforce that Newtonians should know that this does not appear to be a random act. I now want to turn to the people who were on this case from the very first call through the arrest in the early hours of the morning, to give them my gratitude and my respect. To our Newton dispatchers who listened to people concerned about Mr. Garber's well-being. To the police officers who responded to those reports. To the detectives who unraveled the case, especially Detective Sergeant Brian Tramontosi, Detective Stephen Fontano, and Detective Dennis O'Brien. And yes, to Captain McMains and to Chief Carmichael. We are so grateful for your deep experience, your skill, and your tenacity. District Attorney Marion Ryan and her team, the state police, and the people at the crime scene, you were here in Newton with us and for us the minute we needed you, and you stayed late into the early morning and were back as the sun rose. The work that you do is important and difficult, and you do it well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, stressing the preliminary nature of the investigation, at this point we'll take a few questions.
Marion, do you know what the weapon was? Was it just a fist or was there something involved?
We are awaiting a cause of death. We expect there'll be an autopsy today. Based on initial observations, it appears to be blunt force trauma. We don't know specifically.
And you say there's surveillance video, is that a ring camera? Is it surveillance from inside the house? And do you actually have video of the crime being committed?
We have video from outside Mr. Garber's house.
And that's where you picked up her going in and out?
Yeah.
How long had they known each other? What was the nature of the relationship?
She had been a tenant of his several years ago at a different property, not at the house where the incident is alleged to have taken place.
And they had an ongoing
Apparently an ongoing, we're still looking at that, but apparently they've been friends since that time, several years ago when she was a tenant.
It was a romantic relationship with these two?
We're still looking at that. It's very preliminary at
And
this point.
her age?
She is 47, I believe.
And how long did the trade see on the
We, at this point in the investigation, it appears within the last couple of weeks. All right, thank you all. And the arraignment will be at some point, probably after 2 o'clock at this point, but you can confirm with the clerk's office.
Quickly, could I just ask you, is it odd that the police were not able to locate him? They made several trips to the house. I know there was debris and a lot going on there.
I think as you will hear further, and as I mentioned in my remarks, there was a very concerted, the allegation is a very concerted effort on the part of the defendant to conceal the body in the entryway or the hallway into that apartment. Thank you.